The moment stayed frozen in my chest like a shard of glass, sharp and impossible to ignore, because after the meeting ended and the boardroom emptied, my CEO leaned closer than professionalism allowed and whispered something that shattered the calm I had built for years, admitting without words that he had tried to forget that night and had failed. And in that instant I knew my carefully controlled life was about to unravel in ways I never prepared for. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strange ways fate brings people back together, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story is not just mine, it belongs to anyone who has ever tried to bury the past and discovered it still knows their name. I had worked at Westbridge Technologies for 4 years by then, rising quietly from a junior analyst to a senior project lead without making noise or demanding attention, because survival had taught me that blending in was safer than standing out. My days were measured in spreadsheets, deadlines, and polite smiles, and my nights were reserved for exhaustion and silence in my small apartment where memories crept in when I least expected them. Ethan Blackwood had become CEO 6 months earlier, arriving with headlines, confidence, and a reputation for being brilliant and unreachable, and I told myself the tightness in my chest when I first saw him was nothing more than nerves. He was taller than I remembered, sharper around the edges, his success written into every tailored suit and decisive step, yet something familiar lived behind his eyes, something that unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. That first all-hands meeting had been routine until his gaze lingered on me just a second too long, long enough for a flicker of recognition to pass between us like a silent current, and I spent the rest of the day convincing myself it meant nothing. Years earlier, on a rain-soaked night that I had sealed away in my mind, I had met a stranger who had offered kindness when I needed it most, a man whose name I never learned and whose face I had tried to forget because remembering hurt too much. That night had been filled with broken plans, missed trains, and the kind of vulnerability that only appears when two lives collide briefly before separating forever, or so I thought. I had left before dawn, carrying gratitude and regret in equal measure, promising myself it was better that way. At work, the pressure increased as Ethan restructured departments and raised expectations, and I found myself assigned to lead a high-stakes project that reported directly to him. Each update meeting tightened the knot in my stomach as his questions cut straight to the core of every issue, yet beneath the intensity there was a restraint, as if he were holding something back. I struggled to maintain distance, reminding myself that power dynamics were dangerous and memories unreliable, but the past has a way of surfacing when you least expect it, especially when unresolved. The evening after the project review that changed everything, the conference room emptied and the city lights blinked through the glass walls, and that was when he leaned in and confessed in a whisper meant only for me that he had tried to forget that night and failed. My breath caught, my hands trembled, and the world narrowed to the space between us where years of silence collapsed into recognition. I wanted to deny it, to protect the fragile stability I had built, but my eyes betrayed me, reflecting the truth I had buried. He stepped back immediately, professionalism snapping back into place, leaving me alone with a storm of emotions I could no longer ignore. The days that followed were a test of endurance as memories resurfaced in vivid fragments, the rain, the warmth of unexpected kindness, the way a stranger had listened without judgment when I felt invisible. I remembered how that night had given me the courage to leave a toxic situation, to rebuild my life from the ground up, even as I told myself it was safer never to look back. Ethan's presence made that impossible, forcing me to confront the truth that some moments shape us permanently, no matter how hard we try to erase them. As the project neared its deadline, complications arose that threatened to derail months of work, and the pressure mounted from every direction. I worked late into the night, driven by a need to prove myself not just to the company but to myself, and it was during one of those long evenings that Ethan's guarded demeanor softened. He began to trust my judgment openly, to acknowledge my leadership in ways that felt genuine rather than strategic, and I sensed that his struggle mirrored my own, a battle between past and present, vulnerability and control. Outside the office, my life felt suspended, friendships neglected, sleep elusive, as I wrestled with questions I had avoided for years. Was that night merely a coincidence, or had it been the beginning of something unfinished? I feared the answers, because acknowledging their significance meant risking pain, yet ignoring them felt like denying a part of myself. In quiet moments, I realized that the kindness I received back then had saved me, and perhaps the greatest tragedy was pretending it had never mattered. The project crisis reached a breaking point when a critical partner pulled out unexpectedly, leaving us days from failure, and the weight of responsibility pressed down on me until breathing felt difficult. In that chaos, Ethan stood beside me not as a distant CEO but as someone who understood the cost of carrying too much alone. Together, we worked through the night, rebuilding plans, calling in favors, pushing past exhaustion, and in that shared effort the walls between us thinned, replaced by mutual respect forged under pressure. When the project finally succeeded, the relief was overwhelming, and the recognition that followed felt almost unreal. Applause filled the boardroom, yet my eyes met Ethan's across the table, and in that glance lived gratitude, regret, and the quiet acknowledgement of a bond that defied labels. Life did not transform overnight, and there were no dramatic confessions or fairy tale resolutions, only a subtle shift in how we moved forward, more honest with ourselves, more aware of the impact we had on others. In the weeks that followed, I found myself lighter, no longer carrying the secret as a burden, and Ethan seemed changed as well, more present, less guarded, as if allowing the past to exist had freed him rather than trapped him. We established boundaries rooted in respect, choosing integrity over impulse, yet the connection remained, a reminder that some relationships transcend circumstance and time. Just before the ending, please comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, because your words help this community grow and remind others they are not alone. As I look back now, I understand that the night I tried to forget was not a mistake but a turning point, proof that kindness offered in darkness can echo across years and reshape lives in ways we never anticipate. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe, because your support keeps these stories alive, and somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that the past does not disappear, it waits patiently for us to be ready to face it, and when we do, it can become the very thing that sets us free.